Snap cab elevator panels use a patented joint that changes the way you remodel an elevator. The panels, which can be anything from plastic laminate to marble, are at least as durable as traditional panels, but install quickly and far more easily. You'll see how it's done in this video, made during an installation at a 3-story nursing home. There were 2 types of elevators there. The first elevator you'll see was a front and rear door elevator with 2 paneled side walls. Next to it was a front entry elevator. We'll cover paneling both types in this video. Because this is a real installation, shot on location, you're going to hear people talking in the background, people getting paged, and other background noise. But since it's an actual installation, you're also going to see the kind of problems that installers usually face: bent walls, out-of-square cabs, gaps at the corners, and we'll show you how we deal with them. Before we start, let's take a quick look at a snap cab installation. Installation begins at the bottom and works its way layer by layer to the top. Each layer slides into the one below with no hardware other than screws. Less than 8 hours after we started, the elevator we were working on went from this to this. When you work on a cab, start by putting down a tarp to protect the floor, and then remove what you have to get nice flat walls. Most handrails lift off after you loosen a set screw at the bottom of the standoff. On some elevators, and ours was one of them, the rails are bolted on from outside the cab. Begin by cutting notches to start the cut. A good 9 or 10-inch metal cutting blade will cut through the bolt in about the same time it takes to find and loosen a set screw. Remove pad buttons with either pliers or a hammer. If you want to make faster work out of it, try your drill. Bostock snap cabs come with an installation kit packed inside. There's a set of written instructions on top of the box. You're going to need a lot of fasteners, and the kit has plenty, each in its own labeled bag. You'll probably need to do some shimming, so we've included a hefty pack of shims. You'll definitely need some construction adhesive. We've given you plenty and wrapped it in a sheet that tells you how and where to use it. A lot of pieces have factory-applied foam tape that helps hold them in place. Foam tape makes a good shim too, so we've included an extra roll. Knowing how most installations go, we've also included the drill bits and screw tips that you'll need. The trash bag we send along is not only a good place for trash, it's also a good place to store messy caulk guns. Let's take a quick look at the reveals, which are the first part of the cab you'll install. We cut the reveals to width and length at the factory, but dry fit them before you install them and look for trouble. Put them in place the same way you'll install them, with the foam tape nearest the corner. Don't worry about whether the reveal reaches the ceiling. It won't. We cut them about 1 inch short so you won't have to trim them, and the shortfall gets covered up when the new ceiling goes in. Here's the first problem you should look for. There's a bend in the strike jamb, leaving a gap between it and the reveal. It's a simple problem to fix, which we'll do once the reveal is up and in place. Start by applying construction adhesive to the back of the reveal. The adhesive provides a long-lasting bond. The double-sided tape you see next to it is applied at the factory to hold the piece in place while the adhesive dries. Remember to put the reveal up so the foam tape is in the corner, and spend some time seating the reveal firmly against the wall. With the reveal in place, it's time to fix the gap we were talking about. All you need to do is drive some screws in at a slight angle along the outside edge of the reveal. The pressure of the screw will force the reveal up against the jamb, and when you put the paneling up, it will cover the screws. Often, the transom interferes with putting in the reveal. If so, put in a 2-part reveal, like this. When you're working on a 3-wall cab, the front reveals are like those in the cab we've just been working on. But the rear corner is covered by a single reveal that looks like this. Let's take a quick look at toe kick installation. Toe kicks lay the groundwork for the rest of the panels. And with their built-in vents, they're also a key part of the ventilation system. The kicks have vent holes along the top. Holes won't line up with the existing vents, so the first thing we're going to do is cut a couple of holes that do. Choose a spot for your new vents. The area along the existing vents is a good one, and trace along the top of the toe kick. Lay out the opening for the vent, making it large enough to meet local code. Before you start cutting, double-check to make sure you won't be cutting through any cables. Drill a hole at each of the 4 corners. It's easiest if you start with a small hole and then enlarge it, especially when you're drilling through stainless steel. Once you've drawn a line connecting the holes, you can cut out the vent. Cut as many vent holes as you need, and then test fit the toe kick, temporarily screwing a corner in place. If you were installing a toe kick in a room setting, you would check to make sure it was level. You can't count on anything being level in an elevator, so check instead to make sure the kicks are square with the corners. A good framing square will do the trick, but the bigger the square, the more reliable the reading. We like to use a folding square made by Stanley. Both these toe kicks were out of square. We've shimmed them to fix the problem, and once they're screwed in place, we'll remove the shims. When you're ready to install the toe kick, remove the backing from the tape and apply construction adhesive. Put the toe kick in place and screw it to the wall. Moving on to the second layer, what happens here is important because whatever you do, right or wrong, will telegraph its way up the rest of the wall. The second layer fits in the lip of the toe kick, but you want to check out the fit before you get too far along, so screw it temporarily in place. If you're working on a 3-wall cab, make sure the tops of the panels line up from wall to wall. This is the most important time to check for square. Because the toe kick is flexible, the second layer can easily slip out of alignment. If it does, every layer above it will also be out of alignment. Cab walls are seldom completely flat, but these are worse than usual. Shim to fill in the gaps. You're trying to create a nice, straight top edge so that the edge of the next layer slips in place. You can check the gap by measuring, but it's a lot easier just to mark a shim showing the gap at the top of the panel and then compare it with the gap at the bottom. This panel spells trouble, so we'll shim both panels to equalize the gap and then screw them in place. The third layer goes in next, along with the pre-attached handrail. By now, most of the problems have been solved, and putting one layer in is pretty much like putting in another. We're putting in layer 4, aligning the ends, and temporarily attaching one end the way we did earlier. Then they work together to shim between the wall and the panel. Be careful not to over-tighten the screws. You can see what happens if you do. A bit of blowout like this can make it hard to seat the next layer. Layer 5 is pretty much like the layers below it, except on this model, we've got accent lines running up and down, and you need to make sure they align with those in the layer below. Once they're lined up, screw in a corner of the panel and put up the rest of the panels in the layer. Align the layers, check the gap, and shim as needed. Layer 6 goes up quickly, even in real time. The labels you've been seeing on the panels tell you where each panel goes. This is the back wall of layer 6. If you need to lean panels on the wall, protect the finish with some of the paper toweling from the installation kit. If the elevator has pad buttons, they arrive already installed. By now, most of the fuzzy work is out of the way. There's no shimming here since there's no layer above, and there's no pattern to align. The last layer is a top trim cap with attached sight guard. Once you've put the guards on top of the panel, they're attached with Velcro. Last but not least is the stainless steel cap that protects the front edge of the panels. It comes shipped with a wooden binder that you'll use to attach it. There's a recess along one edge which goes against the panels to create a gap. Put on some adhesive. You may have to use some persuasion, but combine it with a wood block to keep from dinging the surface. Remove the protective film and labels, sweep and vacuum, wipe down the walls with the cleaner that was in the installation kit, and you're done.